Unit 4. Ethnic Groups of Vietnam, IELTS Speaking Part 2. Describe a festival or tradition celebrated by an ethnic group. You should say what the festival or tradition is, who celebrates it, how it is celebrated, and explain why it is important. One of the most unique traditions in Vietnam is the Gong Festival, which is celebrated by some ethnic minority peoples in the highland areas, especially in the Central Highlands. This festival is an important way for these communities to preserve cultural identities and connect with their spiritual beliefs. The festival takes place in the village communal house, where people gather to celebrate with music, dance, and ethnic specialities such as sticky rice. A highlight of the event is the live performance of gongs, which are played rhythmically to represent the voices of gods and ancestors. Other traditional musical instruments like a bamboo flute or a string instrument are also played, adding to the festive atmosphere. In addition to music, participants wear traditional costumes, perform folk dances, and take part in cultural exchanges with other villages. Some villages also hold a festival annually where they pray for good yield and celebrate the harvest season. This festival is very important because it helps ethnic peoples keep their identity and maintain their traditions despite modernization. It also gives visitors an insight into the richness of folk art traditions in Vietnam. I think such festivals are a great way to promote harmony between people and show respect for cultural heritage. IELTS Speaking Part 3. Question 1. Why is it important to preserve cultural identities of ethnic minority peoples? Answer. It is very important to preserve cultural identities because they reflect the richness of folk art traditions and the history of different ethnic groups. Many ethnic minorities have unique customs, languages, and traditional clothing that should be protected. If these traditions are lost, future generations may not understand their cultural roots. Therefore, governments and communities should work together to carry out programs that support ethnic specialities and traditions. Question 2. How does traditional music play an important role in ethnic cultures? Answer. Traditional music plays an important role because it helps ethnic peoples express their emotions, beliefs, and stories. For example, some ethnic groups in Vietnam use a bamboo flute or a flat gong during festivals and religious ceremonies. These musical performances not only bring people together but also help younger generations receive the inheritance of their ancestors' traditions. In addition, traditional music is often performed at cultural events to introduce the uniqueness of different ethnic communities. Question 3. What can governments do to support ethnic minorities? Answer. Governments can take many steps to support ethnic minorities. First, they can work out a policy to improve education, such as building schools in remote areas and providing opportunities for students to study at boarding schools. Second, they can create special programs to preserve cultural identities, such as funding festivals, museum of ethnology exhibitions, and traditional craft workshops. Finally, governments should invest in economic development to help raise livestock, improve livestock farming, and support agriculture in terrace fields and swamp paddy fields. These efforts will help ethnic communities catch up with modern society while still protecting their traditions.
A visit to the Highlands. Lan and her classmates went on a school trip to the Museum of Ethnology to learn about the rich diversity of ethnic groups in Vietnam. They were struck by the uniqueness of the clothes, houses, customs and beliefs of ethnic minority peoples. They saw items on display like a bamboo flute, a flat gong, and a wooden statue. This flute is a typical musical instrument of the Tay people, the guide said. They use it in folk dances and love to play an important role in cultural exchanges. Lan noticed a small model of a stilt house and a big communal house. This shows a special style of living in the highlands, said the guide. These houses are important in remote communities where people still practice rice cultivation in swamp paddy fields and submerged fields. The class learned that ethnic people often graze animals in the field, carry out irrigation, and master some farming techniques. These people inhabit the Red River Delta, the coastal delta, and scatter across mountains from the north to the south, the teacher explained. Ethnic minorities make up 15% of Vietnam's population and account for a big percentage of the countryside. In one photo, kids were walking to a small kindergarten in a mountain village. Their material life is simple, said Lan. But their smiles are bright. In another video, people were dancing at a celebration. They hold a festival annually to show thanks for peace and prosperity, the guide said. They also take part in festivities with ethnic specialities like sticky rice, music, and colorful clothes. Many ethnic groups believe in ghosts, while others are skeptical about ghosts. They still practice traditional religious beliefs, such as ancestor worship, which represents the elements of living and the harmony between people. Lan's class also saw how some ethnic minority people live a nomadic life and how the government is working to carry out programs to help them modernize health services and education. In one room, Lan saw a board with a number of celebrities from ethnically diverse countries. Some were even Olympic athletes who competed for gold medals. Next, they visited a real highland village. The people invited the guests into their houses and gave Lan a bunch of flowers and a bar of chocolate as gifts. She saw a water wheel, terrace fields, and many kids playing the bamboo flute. The village took place in a valley with beautiful natural scenery. That night, the teacher talked about how we must keep the identity of each group and preserve cultural heritage. Some people receive the inheritance of art and stories from their grandparents, she said. For example, they still preserve proverbs, are good at sculpting, or even good at architecture. Lan sat quietly, thinking. I used to think we were all the same, she said. Now I see that every group is special. Back in class, she wrote in her report.